Good evening and welcome to the regular City Commission meeting. Today is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024, and I'd like to convene the meeting and I'd like to start with the roll call. Mr. Wiley?
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you all please stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So tonight, under Ceremonies and Proclamations, one of my favorite things that we get to do as a commission is that tonight we are going to be swearing in a new police officer, and that is always very exciting. Even though it means that we're going to be without him for about 16 weeks, it's still another plus in our column. So James, if you'd like to come on up, we'll get this going.
All right, Mayor, Commission, good evening. Just like you said, this is one of the most exciting times of our career, and so we're going to swear in one of our newest officers, James Canals. James grew up in Milwaukee, Oregon, and graduated from Milwaukee High School. He joined the U.S. Army and was an MP. He spent about 3 years stationed in Germany, and after active duty, he did 3 years in the reserves up at JBLM. James started on November 12th, and he leaves for the academy on Monday. Joining him tonight is his wife, Alexis, his daughter, Aubrey, and his son, Jeff. Turn it over to you.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing tonight? Good? Is this exciting? All right, awesome. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So raise your right, I'm going to get my official pin here. Raise your right hand, and I'm going to let you read it. So I,
James Canals, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Oregon. I will abide by the law enforcement code of ethics and the department's rules and regulations while faithfully performing my duties as a police officer for Oregon City, Oregon.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Please come and sign your life away, and then we will notarize everything, and then we will do some photos. And then we'll also get, if you guys, do you want to come and take a picture with your dad? Okay, so I'll tell you when. So just watch me. Write your name out here. Oops. Ah! Did I let that roll off?
Yeah.
That was the microphone, by the way. So, next on our agenda is a proclamation for Shop Local, and I will go ahead and read it. So, whereas the City of Oregon City has more than 1,400 licensed small businesses, and whereas the City of Oregon City celebrates those small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy, and whereas our local businesses are part of what makes our city strong and unique, and whereas every dollar spent in an Oregon City-based business is another dollar kept in our community supporting our residents. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, along with the City Commission, do to proclaim December, 'tis the season to shop local in Oregon City, and urge all the residents of our community to spend holiday shopping dollars here in their own community. And I will sign this on the 4th day of December, 2024. And I'd like to call up Matthew Broderick and Juliana Allen to receive copies of the proclamations for a photo op. You guys want to be in the photo op?
No thanks.
Hi, how are you?
We have to make it all look pretty. And Juliana Allen is our Executive Director of the Downtown Oregon City Association, and she has her two lovely children with her who also shop local in Oregon City.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ready for this? Okay. Thank you. Okay, and Juliana, you're coming back up. So we have a presentation tonight. Oh, wait a minute. We have no public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Oh, okay. While Juliana's coming up, I believe we have some board members of the Downtown Oregon City Association. Would you just raise your hand for the audience's recognition? Thank you for being here. Are the boys coming up and sitting with you? And you could reintroduce them again. I mean, I know them, but...
Hello, Juliana Allen, Happy Valley, Oregon. These are my two little helpers here, Everett Allen and Hendrick Allen. So, yes, I am from the Downtown Oregon City Association.
Is the mic on?
I don't know. Oh,
Yep, there
sorry.
you go.
Did everybody hear my introduction good enough? Okay. All right, so I prepared a slideshow for everybody. I'm here to give an update to you all on what we've been up to for the last 2 quarters, so quarter 3 and quarter 4. So on tonight's agenda is an activity report from the last 2 quarters. I know we're still in quarter 4, but work with me on this one. The successes of the last 2 quarters, the business and vacancy update, and looking forward. I'm going to read this one, actually. Okay, so first of all, I would like to talk about our event season that we had this last, Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, so to recap our events, we had the first city celebration, which everybody is aware of, and so I want to say this year we had approximately 6,200 attendees, compared to last year we had just under 5,000 people, so that is about a 26% increase on the attendees over year on that one. And also, I know it's important to figure out where people are coming from, and we don't have super great technology on that, but what I did do was we had 105 vendors, and I was able to figure out how many, like what percentage was coming from where. About 52% came from Oregon City, 13% came from Portland, and then we had just an across the board, 1% here, 2% there, which was very interesting to me because that lines up with our audience as a whole. The vast majority are coming from Oregon City, well, about half, and then a good chunk from Portland, and then the rest are pretty varied on where they come from, like Westland, Happy Valley, Milwaukee, all those places. But yeah, First City went really well. We had positive feedback from vendors, positive feedback from the business community, positive feedback from our sponsors, and I'm really happy with how that event turned out. We really tried to focus this year on supporting the businesses that are already in our district. So in bringing in the vendors on the street, we were much more selective about what we chose to bring in. We only had 1 to 2 food carts, and we really tried hard to support the actual businesses that are there every day doing business. And so the next event was a summer concert series. This was our first year doing it. We called it Sunset Sounds. So for 9 weeks, we did a concert in the plaza every Wednesday. And that was our first year doing it, again, with the intent of driving traffic to the businesses. And, restaurants are not typically busy on Wednesday nights. So when we were planning this event, we asked them, hey, what night would be best for us to put on this summer concert series? And they said one of their slower nights. So we picked Wednesday, and it was a lot of fun. Yes, and this one I am very proud of. We did a collaborative city commission candidate forum with the Chamber of Commerce, OCBA, and us. That's a big deal. That was all 3 business organizations working together to put on an event. And I'm really happy with all 3 of our organizations and how we were able to come together and put on this event. Fall Wine Walk, 3rd straight wine walk that has been sold out. Another one that was positive feedback by the business community, positive feedback from the community that came in to do the event, and from the wineries. That's a really great event for us across the board. And then Trick or Treat on Main Street, I want to give a big recognition to the city, the Public Works Department at the city, and the OCPD as well. Public Works and OCPD and we all met because there's like 3,000 people in downtown on that night and during rush hour. So it's a very busy evening and a lot of cars, a lot of kids. Not the safest thing, right? And so we got together a couple months ago and said, okay, what can we do to take a step in the direction to make this event safer for our families, for the kids? So we worked with Public Works and OCPD, and we had staffed and volunteered crossing guards at the main intersections, and then we closed some of the other intersections. And again, it wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. And in meeting with them afterwards, we were also able to say, okay, this is what went well, this is what we need to adjust for next year. And so I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but it was a step in the right direction, and I'm really, really happy with the way that went as well. Small Business Saturday was just last Saturday. A huge media push for the businesses in our district. And yeah, our businesses have reported doing well. So I'm also really happy about that. We were downtown a good chunk of the day on Saturday, and it was so fun to see just how many people are out supporting the district. And as coming up, we have the holiday tree lighting on this Saturday, the 7th. And then we are doing, please stop that, boys. Sorry. Without skipping a beat, right? The whole district has actually gotten together to do a district-wide holiday window display. So it's first time, to my knowledge, that as many businesses have participated in decorating the windows, and we made a little contest about it and have like a QR code for people to scan. So anyone coming into the district can vote on who their favorite business window decoration is. And again, it has been really well received by the business community and by the community in general. It's been a lot of fun. Right now, I think Salon Pretty is winning, so just putting that out there. They're kind of kicking it for everybody. Okay, moving on. Sorry, I will talk a little faster, guys. Another big activity over the last 2 quarters has been business owner outreach and engagement continues to be a central focus. I started in this role about 1.5 years or so now, and coming in, that was my main focus. That was the lens I viewed everything through, and that is what has continued to remain at the center of everything. Building relationships within the district, business owners, the community, that's central focus, and that remains that way. Okay, something that has shifted. We got our strategy, we have like our processes much more dialed in. Everything has kind of been cleaned up as far as that goes. So we've really been able to push forward with our strategic media and communications plan. And that has been awesome. So we have been able to get some insight into the target audience of who is coming downtown, why are they coming downtown, where are they from. That has been fascinating. We have the vast majority of our people are women, aged 35 to 50. Again, about 40 to 50% are coming from Oregon City, 15 to 20% coming from Portland, and then the rest is just scattered throughout the smaller metro areas. Our social media is doing really well as well. We're averaging about 1,000 views on Instagram a day, and our community newsletter, I've been very consistent with that. We continue to grow that, and we average about an open rate of 40%. Our effort has been to showcase the district in a sophisticated, contemporary lens. And if you have not looked at our social media, you should check it out, because I'm really proud of how we have elevated the brand of downtown. Okay, awesome. All right, so the successes of our downtown, again, I hit on some of this in the last slide, so I'm not going to go over it in detail. Business promotion, our event season, and again, outreach. So the outreach has been something that's been central to, again, everything that we've done in the district. And business promotion, and then the events. So everything goes back to community and commerce. That's our mission statement, so that's what we have filtered absolutely everything through. And with getting more dialed in on who's coming into the district, we have been able to cater our events and our marketing much more specifically to the people that are interested in coming to the district. Okay. I'm very excited about this one. So the vacancy update of the district. So year to date in the downtown, we had 10 new businesses open. The photo on the left is Foraged Made and Found. They're over on 5th Street. They are a collective of local artists and makers. And then the photo on the right is from Oregon City India Grill. You can see some faces you might recognize in that photograph there. So 10 new businesses opened in the last year, 1 relocated within the district, and then only 3 have closed. pretty good. Vacancies, so we have one space that is vacant, that's a restaurant, like set for a restaurant, one that was set for retail, and then two pretty large vacancies, but they will require so much work. They're not move-in ready, so they're going to require a lot of work on the front end from somebody to come in there and be able to take that space. And actually, I got an email earlier today, so that one retail vacancy I was talking about emailed me today and said, no, they have a business in there and they're moving in January. So vacancies are doing great in downtown, and that's right now, and I am fully aware of the elephant in the room, that will be the courthouse, and we will have a lot of office space coming available, so I do want to make mention to that, and that is on my list for the new year, is really getting a better understanding of what it's like, who's moving, when are they moving, what office spaces will be vacant in the new year. Okay, looking forward. So our goal is always the same, community and commerce. How can we keep this district thriving? And especially with that county courthouse relocation that's coming, is what can we do to support the district? What can we do to keep the district moving forward while this is happening? So we're going to do that by strengthening relationships. We have a grant opportunity we're working on with the Oregon Main Street. There is a revitalization grant that we're currently working through that will award up to $400,000 for a business in the community. Working on enhancing the image and revenue generating events. So that is what we are working towards for the upcoming year. And thank you. Thank you very much. So I've listed our amazing board of directors, and then at the end, the staff, myself, and Mr. Ryan Brinkley. So thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
When is our opening date for, of course, now that you've taken the name off of it,
Watershed.
is it open?
Already.
Yep.
Yeah, I think.
It's open now?
Yeah.
They did a soft opening?
They did a very quiet opening on Small Business Saturday.
Okay.
Yep, so they are open now Wednesday through Sunday. So Watershed is where Winehards used to be. So Winehards closed 9 months ago or so, and Watershed has been working. Tara and Aaron are the owners. They have been working very, very hard to get that space. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. They have
saw the video on Facebook. It was amazing. It's completely transformed the place. It really looks amazing.
Yeah, they have a living room space in there and like a bunch of games for kids to play. It's very, I'm really happy to have that in the district.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Juliana? Yes, go ahead, Rocky.
Not really questions, but I think I think the Downtown Association is very important. I have done my part, I think, to advocate for continued funding for that from the city. And as things change over the years, events change and things like that. But I will tell you that I think there's two events that shouldn't have gone away. And that was the Harvest Festival. And the other event was a really one-time thing, I think. I think the Harvest Festival was twice. The holiday market, which was and I think both actually were from the same staff member, but those two events were a start in doing some smaller events, and they had a pretty good response, I think. One of the things of the tree lighting, of course, is we're going to have the street closed anyway. Might as well sell booth spaces and make some money and have something going on downtown. I see you're bringing back at least a Holiday on Main Street event, which doesn't necessarily add the vendor piece to it, but those were two little events that were very successful. Should be brought back, I hope, or at least work towards bringing some more of those smaller events back. And I'll just say that.
Yeah, we'll work on our events calendar for the upcoming year in January, so I will keep that in mind. Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Go ahead, Adam.
I've got a few. So, and this first one is mainly because it's a question that I get a lot, which is what's going on with the street tree lights? Because I know
They're gone.
They're gone.
well, I know that, but I know that there have been efforts in the past, but
They're not coming.
They're not coming back.
okay. Well, I guess they've answered my question.
Yeah, they're not.
I mean, there were
missed, agreeing with you, we
Yeah.
missed an opportunity when we did the streetscape improvements back in 2021 and 2020 of putting conduit in the sidewalk when we tore them all up. There is no way to get them lit, and doing them from the top of the buildings is not safe or financially feasible or safety-wise, so we have just,
and the trucks ripped off the lights.
yeah, they kept ripping them off, so.
So that's why, and so we shouldn't answer for the fact that they may not be coming back, because we don't really know that, but I assume they're not coming back.
No, they're not.
But one of the things that we should throw in on top of that is the fact that in order to try to recover doing some sort of project that did the same thing as the street lights on the trees was to do the lights across Main Street, which we granted them the money for. Public Works refused to find the opportunity to put the poles in, it ignored it completely, and that's on us.
Yeah, it was a fail.
It should be down there, those lights should be installed on Main Street, and we should have fixed that. And maybe we still will someday.
I will move on. So, on the Sunset Sounds, did you get any reports from businesses that there were boosted attendance?
Yes, we did. So that event was primarily focused on our restaurants, and the main one that improved from that night was the Verdict. So the Verdict reported an increase in sales on Wednesday night, so that's super.
Great, and then the last one is, do you have any updates on the Bridgeview building?
That's basically, Sean, Beth Henderson and myself are chairing that subcommittee, and we know that our friend, Larry Medeiros, has pulled permits. That's what we know. Okay. And we are still working on trying to get a meeting with him. He's had a couple of deaths in his family, so he's been a little distracted, unfortunately.
Does he still have access to that Main Street grant when you and I sat on that committee? Okay.
Yes.
Good, okay.
We are trying to get him to the finish line of getting the last stuff in, because the grant is it April, as I'm recalling?
March or April, one of the
Yes.
two, yeah, coming up.
That's our goal, get it to the finish line.
Okay, well, clearly you are no longer needed, so.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Well, my partner in crime is sitting in the back row back there, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Michael?
Well, first off, thank you for everything you've done in the time that you've been there, and I know you do it with the help of a lot of people, and I'm really pleased to see the size of your board now, but under your leadership, it kind of brought DOCA back from the dust.
Thank you.
Which is great. And very encouraged by the collaboration between DOCA and OCBA and the Chamber. Having our business community speaking with one voice, we can make a lot of stuff happen. I appreciate that. And I don't want us to give up on lights downtown. I know that the trees are problematic. I know hanging lights over Main Street is problematic. Have we considered outlining the buildings? Not trying to cross the street, not trying to deal with trees, but deal with the buildings. Downtown Ashland at this time of the year is gorgeous, and it's lit on the building outline. So I don't want us to abandon the idea of some impressive lighting downtown because, gee, we tried that and it didn't work. We need to try again with something.
Yeah, try something different. I agree. Yeah, thank you.
Let me ask you a question. Have you seen the gateway arch that they have in Canby that goes over the Main Street? Well, they have one in several communities, and I will tell you that we've been looking into trying to find some grant money and some other fundraising to do something like that.
We actually gave grant money for that.
I don't know that's really kind of not exactly the same
It's
thing.
not exactly the same as lighting the buildings, but it would, would basically be an entryway to, historic downtown.
Yeah. You could also Google Bozeman spiders, and you get the same sort of thing. It's at all the main intersections on the main street in Bozeman, Montana, and they string out to the four corners. You're dealing with going over the street again. So, but there's lots of possibilities. I don't want us to give up on it.
Me too.
So Victoria, did you want to say anything? She's the president of the board this year. President of the chamber, anything?
I have a little bit.
Okay. You have to come up here if you're going to speak. You can't speak from the audience. Mr. O'Donnell.
So I've always felt that DOCA has a key role in the success of our community, and I view the relationship between the city and DOCA as hand in glove. And as such, I always worry about the health and financial stability of our partner organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
And I thought for some reason that you were obligated to provide a financial statement. I didn't see one.
Yes, I provide that with James. I'm happy to share anything as well.
So James has one of those?
Correct, yeah. Yep, we meet every quarter.
Okay, because, for me, it's all about deliverables and obligations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Your business organization, I know that we provide a substantial amount of support.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that you touched upon revenue-generating events.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously have an annual budget, an operating budget. I don't need to go into those details. If you provided them to James for review and the city manager, that's fine. To me, it's all about sources of income, and hopefully there's substantial in addition to the $60,000 that Oregon City provides every year. Pardon me? I'm looking forward to additional outreach. There's a future. We're going to argue about the name. Some people want to call it a DMO. I happen to want to call it DMMO, which is Destination Marketing and Management Organization. And I hope that your outreach includes them, because you'll be an essential part of the input to that success. So those are my questions, and obviously I didn't see a financial statement. Maybe it's not necessary for the public to see it, but it certainly is for our interfaces with you, particularly
Correct.
James Graham and the city manager. And I hope you're financially stable and always look for more sources of income. Take a lesson from government.
Yes, no, having been a business owner, I understand multiple sources of income, and you can't just rely on one track. So we have a solid budget, and we're doing well. Yep.
That's what I have. It's always a business proposition for me. I'm looking for viable partners that hold up their end of the agreement.
Yep, got to understand
And
the
you seem
numbers.
to have done it, and I want to compliment you. You really have done a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham, did you want to add anything? Nope. Everything is, all the boxes are checked?
I did not want to give those publicly. That's not something I was super comfortable doing, so, yeah.
Sorry, you said what?
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to present the financials publicly, so that was why I didn't do that, so. But they're there. I'm happy to send them privately to anybody. I wasn't comfortable doing that in a public meeting. But yeah,
Maybe James can forward those to us for review.
Sure, absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Juliana.
Yes, thank
Thank you for everything. Thank you, board members. And I've been, as you know, I'm the liaison from our commission to their board. And I will say that in the hands of our new president, Victoria Meinig, we are back on track. And I am really pleased and, again, want to commend the organization, both staff members, Brian Brinkley and Juliana Allen, for all their work. We have a clean team member. The elevator is running smoothly. The loo is running smoothly. So we're just going to try to keep up the good work. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, boys, for being so good and helping Mom out.
Good job, boys.
So, all right. So next on our agenda is items 6 and 7. So adoption of the agenda and consent agenda. Is there anything on there that you would like to take off, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda unless...
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt and approve the agenda and approve the consent agenda. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So on our agenda tonight, we have several public hearings. I believe, are all of these public works, or they're all, so we have one planning one. So we have two public works items, items A and B. So we have the second reading of ordinance number 241014, McLaughlin Boulevard enhancements, update to the transportation systems plan. Are there any questions about that, or do we need a full-on report? Okay, hearing none, let's have a motion.
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 24-1014.
Second.
Okay,
Ordinance number 24-1014, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Oregon City Transportation System Plan by adopting the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Phase 3 Corridor Plan.
and I will add again for the record that we are approving a concept, we are not approving a specific design, and we will get back to this later, correct? Correct, all right, let's have the roll call.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Item number B is the first reading of ordinance number 24-1008, erosion and sediment control code amendment, Oregon City Municipal Code 1747, and I will skip reading all the file numbers. So we'll have a staff report, and we have one person who is interested in testifying on this particular item.
Mayor and Commission, good evening. My name is Jude Tadeus. I'm an assistant planner here at the Community Development Department at the City of Oregon City. And in response to the November 18th recommendation of the Planning Commission, I'm here to present file LEG 24000003, proposed text amendments to Oregon City Municipal Code Chapter 1747, erosion and sediment control, to the Mayor and City Commission for consideration in a first hearing. If you could advance the slide, please. Yeah, so this file is subject to a legislative type 4 process with the requisite notice to DLCD having taken place, and as well as public hearings to the Planning Commission, which recommended approval to the City Commission on November 18th. And then a number of hearings can take place at the discretion of each hearings body. Disclosures of ex parte conversations is not required in the legislative process. However, disclosures of conflict of interest is required. And then ordinarily we'd present a public comment matrix updated for each hearing, but no public comments have been received thus far for this file. The proposal is to adopt new code language in Oregon City Municipal Code Chapter 1747 to address and include construction site runoff. Adoption is necessary to comply with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality requirements for Oregon City's MS4 permit to include code that explicitly addresses construction site runoff in addition to erosion and sediment control. Construction site runoff is currently addressed in the city's stormwater and grading design standards, which requires owners to operate and maintain stormwater management systems that address water quality and water volumes. So no regulatory changes to the way erosion, sediment control, and construction site runoff management are proposed with this text amendment. It's simply to maintain compliance with Oregon Department of Environmental Quality standards for our MS4 permit. This evening, Marcus Cubo, the Water Quality Coordinator for Stormwater with our Public Works Department, will present more information after my presentation here. So the criteria for approval are addressed in the staff report, which is attached as an exhibit to the agenda, and addresses the criteria in Chapter 1768 for zoning changes and comprehensive plan amendments, as well as the Oregon City Comprehensive Plan and its applicable goals and policies and state land use goals. And staff has provided Ordinance 24-1008 and with draft findings for the above criteria. And as far as how to proceed, As I said before, on November 18th, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 in favor of recommending the amendments to this chapter as proposed to the City Commission. The amendments are proposed in order to comply with Oregon DEQ requirements, and as such, the Commission has the options to approve the file as proposed, approve with specific revisions, or not approve and provide further direction to staff. And with that, I can turn this over to Marcus Cubo in Public Works to provide additional information.
Thank you, Jude. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Marcos Cubo, the Water Quality Coordinator for the City of Oregon City. I also happen to be a resident of this fine city as well.
Hit the clicker.
So this will be much like the last presentation I gave all of you, very brief and to the point. I'm going to tell you what we're amending, why we're amending it, and how this impacts us. So we are amending Chapter 17.47 with additional terms that define pollutants beyond sediment and stormwater runoff. We already inspect construction sites' best management practices, including waste management controls. These are just added terms that put it in codified writing. This change in language is required by our stormwater permit. Adding construction waste to the language covers any pollution that leaves the site, not just sediment or runoff. We already enforce this during construction site inspections, but the Environmental Protection Agency and Oregon Department of Environmental Quality wanted in writing for legal enforcement to hold contractors responsible. These changes don't affect how we do business or slow down development because we already require contractors to manage their waste. Public Works staff have been briefed on these amendments and will continue to inspect construction sites per their standards of practice. And that's really all I have. I'll be happy to answer any stormwater-related questions about this amendment. Otherwise, I think Jude could handle it better than I do. That's all.
So let me ask just a question for the audience: is what is the essence of the problem that Department of Environmental Quality is trying to solve? What has precipitated this particular amendment?
Well, essentially, before this amendment, we really only had language that discussed sediment control and construction runoff, but it doesn't necessarily include everything that's on a construction site. So by using this, using this waste material language, we can include anything like floating debris, piece of plastic saran wrap that was holding a pallet together, just anything that leaves a construction site we can enforce and have the site implement best management practices, or we have to shut down the site.
Well, I can understand that. Before you started working for us, I was involved in a project at one of our historic properties where they were replacing, it was our inflow and infiltration project. And while they were digging the trench to put the pipe in, several of the construction workers took off their gloves and they just left them in the hole. And I said, "Are you going to leave those gloves down there?" I said, "They're going to last there from now until forever." And they kind of went like, "Well, yeah." And I asked them to get them out of the hole. So it's stuff like that that just gets kind of tossed around. And I mean, I will say honestly, just from my own experiences, that construction sites are not the neatest places I've ever seen. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere. You know, they finish drinking whatever they were drinking and it gets tossed here or there. Like you said, the plastic from pallets is taken off and then, you know, it could be blowing off-site or wherever. So I think, you know, from my own observation, and I would say this was neater than many, but, you know, like I said, they were just leaving, they cut off a piece of pipe, and instead of taking it out, they left it, you know, in the hole. And I was kind of like, is that, for me personally, I didn't know whether that was acceptable or not, but on our side, I said, could you just get that out of there? Because I didn't want it to get buried under tons of dirt, and, you know, 20,000 years from now, they're going to find, oh, plastic glove, what is this? So it's that kind of thing that you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. It's just these little changes that can make a big difference in our world.
Are we as DEQ encouraging, you know, more on-site recycling, or is it all just getting thrown in a big old dumpster and then it still goes to Arlington?
We haven't added any language about separating the waste. We're just requiring that it's safely transported off of the site, so it's not just getting into the environment. So yes, it is unfortunate that oftentimes many things are not sorted and go directly to the landfill, but I hear that Metro's working on some plans to implement sorting of sorts.
So hopefully there's some incentives that come with that. We'll have to talk to, I just got appointed to some solid waste committee for Metro, so maybe that's part of it, and it involves garbage. So, any questions, gentlemen? For staff?
I actually appreciate that type of report. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Right on the money. Good job.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question.
Absolutely.
Enforcement, does that fall to code enforcement or to Public Works?
It starts with our erosion control team. Our inspectors go on site and they're required to do at least 3 inspections during a construction development period, and they determine whether the erosion control is being used properly, and if things do not go well, then we can give them a notice of non-compliance, and then we give a stop work order. And if that doesn't work, then we get code enforcement involved, and then we have to start using financial fines and penalties like that.
Okay, but it starts with Public Works staff? Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
We've never really gotten to that point, have we, where we've had to shut a job down because of non-compliance?
Not to my knowledge, not since I've been here.
So you're saying that we will definitely work with the contractor to try to make sure that they comply and give them a chance, I guess, to fix it, and then if not, then obviously other things could happen. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Okay, thank you. We have one person who wants to testify, and Harlan, are you ready? It's not on this one. Okay, sorry, I thought it said B. It's on the next one. Sorry, I just wanted to see you, so there you go. Okay, so do we have anybody in the audience who would like to testify on this particular item? Any other discussion? Okay, so we will close the public hearing, and we will deliberate on this. So, gentlemen, what is your pleasure? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the first reading of ordinance 24-1008, erosion and sediment control amendment.
Second.
Ordinance number 24-1008, an ordinance adopting amendments to Oregon City Municipal Code Title 17, erosion and sediment control of the Oregon City Municipal Code.
Let's have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So thank you all for a very good job on this. I am confident that we won't have to get to any drastic measures, that we have very responsible contractors in our city, and we can work with them to make these small incremental changes. So thank you.
Thank you. I didn't forget about the comment about the catch basin stickers, so I have some here if you
I'd like one.
use them. May I approach the bench?
Oh, please, yes. This is not court.
Approach the bench.
Yes, approach the bench. Yeah, well, see, we're doing martial law now here, so did you hear that, the last item? I just got martial law.
job.
Yeah, I'll put this on one next to my house, which is, I have a catch basin there.
Maybe in a big abuse.
Sure. And this, we can, how do we stick the, we apply adhesive and then we can stick it on somewhere? Okay, how do we make these stick on there? Wow. Okay, well, I'll call for a JB Weld site visit, put this on the catch basin near my house, so that's the one I maintain anyway, so. I just take the leaves and stuff out of it. It always gets piled up and then it starts flooding out into the intersection where the pedestrians are walking, so it's basically self-serving. I clean it so that I don't have to step in the big puddles. All right, so next on our agenda is item C, is the first reading of ordinance number 2410, the Park Place Concept Plan Code Amendments, Legislative File 24-01. And is this Aquila and Pete? Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. So good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to start with just a few comments and then Pete will go through the staff presentation. I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about what this application is for your sake and for the audience and for the listeners at home. And this was a legislative hearing that went before the Planning Commission in September and October. What you are hearing tonight is not a development application. I just want to make sure that that's clear to anyone who's interested in this. It's to make changes to the development code. So there's no development proposed with this hearing. Just a little bit of background. So in 2022, there was a development application that came through and was reviewed as a master plan, which is a discretionary process. A discretionary review is one where the individual judgment of each planning commissioner, city commissioner, or whoever the decision maker is at the time applies their discretion to each criteria and whether the application meets that criteria. The Planning Commission approved that development application, but it was denied and then eventually went to LUBA, and LUBA sent that back to the city saying that the Oregon revised statutes require us to only use clear and objective criteria for applications that involve housing, not a discretionary review. That type of review is not appropriate. So after receiving that decision from LUBA, the City Commission directed staff to create clear and objective code criteria that further implements the Park Place Concept Plan without discretionary review. So that's what these code changes represent. Just one other note, in addition to clear and objective criteria, when we were crafting these, we also had to keep in mind rough proportionality and a rational nexus when we were thinking about what kind of exactions could come out of clear and objective codes. So today, planning staff, myself and Pete have been working with the Planning Commission since May to go through all of these changes. And the hearing tonight is for you to consider the code amendments and make a decision whether or not you want to adopt them. Just another item, I was asked at one point, so if there is a development application at some point, when is the appropriate time to comment on that, given that tonight is about code changes only? And so most likely if we get a development application, it'll look like a type 2 subdivision, and those are noticed to property owners within 300 feet of the property, as well as a city-recognized neighborhood association. And so that, at that point in time, if someone has a comment on development, that's the appropriate time to submit their comments to us, to staff. And with that, I'll turn it over to Pete to walk through the rest of it. Thank you. Oh, do you want to, just one more thing to mention, we gave you some hard copies of you have one clean set of proposed code and one set with red lines. And the purpose of that is there's page numbers in the middle of each of the pages to kind of help follow along if you need to look more closely at the code as we go through the presentation.
Thank you, Aquila. Yeah, that's right. The page numbers on the bottom middle of those. There's two versions. There's a clean version of code and a red line version of those.
Which they look almost the same on the cover.
Right. And I will have, as I go through a summary of the amendments, there'll be a little red box on each slide that says what page number in the clean version is I'm talking about and what page number in the red line version I'm talking about. But my slides are summaries. They're not detailed discussions about the code amendments themselves. We need to do okay. Legislative, that's right. Thank you. Okay, good evening. So tonight, I'll be going over the legislative process to date and the meetings that occurred previously. A little background on the project that Aquila has already provided, and then a general overview of the code. We have had several planning commission reviews prior to the legislative process. We also presented at work sessions to the City Commission in May and August, to the Citizen Involvement Committee August 5th, Park Place Neighborhood Association on August 19th, and we had the first Planning Commission public hearing September 23rd, and they made their recommendation to the City Commission on October 28th. Little background on the plan. Park Place concept plan was adopted in 2008. It's approximately 500 acres. It includes a 2002 urban growth boundary expansion area. It was developed over a 2-year process with input from residents and stakeholders. It emphasizes good urban design, multimodal connectivity, and opportunities for placemaking, a mix of housing types, and ensures that land will be planned efficiently, sustainably, and to maximize the potential of the land while protecting natural resources. The plan was built and drafted principally on 11 key elements that are shown in here on this slide. Some of these elements were codified in 2008. Some were implemented through design standards, and some were envisioned to be implemented by future zone changes. Following the adoption of the plan, multiple infrastructure master plans were also updated, and those plans incorporate some of these key elements, such as the 2013 Transportation System Plan and the 2020 Stormwater and Grading Design Standards and Stormwater Master Plan. That incorporated key elements 1, 6, and 7. The concept plan has 3 comprehensive plan designations, and I have to actually correct this slide because we've been concentrating on the northern end of the concept plan. There's actually 4 comprehensive plan designations if you take into account the public school designation area for Tumwater Elementary School, which is quasi-public. That's the blue section south of there. So these are the medium density residential zone is the principal one, low density residential, and the mixed use corridor. And when property owners apply to annex into the city, these designations guide the rezoning from county to city zoning. Property owners must apply for rezoning concurrently with their annexation petition to the city. For zoning, land in the North Village, which has annexed to the city to date, has a zoning designation of neighborhood commercial, which implements the mixed use corridor designation, R5, medium density residential, and R10, low density residential. So these amendments, as Aquila mentioned previously, they refine the code to fully implement the key elements that we just talked about. They also implement state requirements for clear and objective approval criteria for needed housing. They're intended to achieve a mix of housing types and diversity in the residential zones. provide new standards for provision of parks and trails, and refine the permitted uses and standards for the neighborhood commercial zone. And to determine which chapters of the code needed to be refined and amended, the Planning Commission reviewed 11 of the 11 key elements and compared them against the zoning code. We wrote an implementation memorandum which addressed those elements and what additional steps needed to be taken to refine the code. And through that, we determined there were 7 different sections of the code that needed an update. The first section that we brought forward to be amended was the definitions section. These are mostly new definitions to implement the plan, but there are also a few definitions needed that are in the existing code that were not currently defined. The final definitions will require renumbering to fit the numbering of the Oregon City Municipal Code in alphabetical order. Examples include things like what is an architecturally significant facade, what is a deck, what is an eco roof, etc. Next section that we looked at is a section of the Public Improvements Code, Chapter 1612, specifically Chapter 1612, subsection 026, Design of Alleys. This revision creates a new clear and objective standard to offer a Type 2 modification allowance of an alley requirement within certain overlay districts, such as the Natural Resources Overlay District and the Geologic Hazard District, where public alley access may not be feasible, safe, or practicable. A third modification would exempt development from the alley requirement in order to accommodate the green buffering transition that is part of the code amendments as well, which is the transition area between the new development within the boundary of the concept plan and existing city residential development outside the plan boundary. There are already alley access and driveway cut limitations in this chapter for collector and arterial roads, and those have been further clarified in these code amendments. Next section is the low-density residential district dimensional standards. Within this zone district, a transition area has been codified where new lots within the concept plan area are to match the adjacent city zoning for not only the minimum lot size, but also the minimum lot width and depth. So if you're in an R5 zone, but you're abutting an R10 zone in an existing subdivision, you need to meet the minimum lot width, depth, and zone district in the R10 zone abutting you. There's also a 40-foot setback between existing units within outside of the plan boundary and proposed units within the plan boundary. And that is shown on the map here in the dotted, dashed red line up there in the R10 zone. This chapter also includes a section on additional uses which are limited to assure compatibility with adjacent city residential zones. And they include tree planting and preservation requirements to provide landscaping and screening buffer in that transition area. Similarly, this requirement has been added to the medium density R5 zone to match the adjacent existing residential zone outside of the concept plan. And the same 40-foot setback applies in the medium density zone as it applies in the low density zone. Likewise, within the transition area, the uses are limited to residential use, road, parks, trails, and open space within the transition area, and include those landscaping and screening standards for tree planting and preservation. The medium-density residential zone retains the existing allowance to allow multifamily development in the R3.5 zone district through a Type 3 master plan, and clarifies the minimum and maximum density for multifamily development if it is allowed through that master plan process in the R3.5 zone. And it has been reformatted for better readability. Just to note, there is no R3.5 zoning in the Park Place concept plan boundary currently. Next, we're going to be talking about the residential standards in Chapter 1721. This includes residential standards for residential facades and garages, and those standards have been revised to be clear and objective. Modifications require a Type 2 decision. The garage orientation standard was revised to more clearly state that front-loaded garages are not permitted on any road designated as a collector, neighborhood collector, minor arterial, or arterial street. A proposed solar access and orientation standard was considered and drafted, but ultimately removed because of its difficulty in implementation. The front-loaded garages are also not permitted abutting a public park across from a residential development. Within Chapter 1721, we also included a new housing diversity standard that requires that a minimum number of lots in a residential development be for middle housing, depending on the size of the proposed development. Along with this is a requirement that those middle housing lots abut one another in order to achieve that, along with their requirements is that no more than 3 of those middle housing lots abut one another in an attempt to achieve better distribution of housing unit types throughout the development. Next, the neighborhood commercial district was revised, and that district is intended to serve the neighborhoods nearby and attract businesses and patrons alike, and include uses that attract visitors and businesses to the neighborhood commercial district. The commission suggested a clarification to simplify the code section that previously allowed residential use in this zone. It would still allow residential use as long as it is set back 100 feet from Livesey Road. And that would help protect the zone for commercial uses. Within that zone district, there are various civic uses added. Food carts are prohibited. Off-site stormwater limited to half an acre, and it must have public access, a soft trail, and benches to serve as amenities. Park size within this limited sized zone district is limited to 3/4 of an acre. And there are revised design standards to add visual interest and pedestrian-friendly elements for commercial buildings, as well as additional landscaping standards. Next, we have new dedication standards for parks and trails that reference the new approved Parks Master Plan and the previously adopted Trails Master Plan. There have been revisions to clarify the use of fee in lieu of dedication, and where we can allow for system development charge credits based on our existing system development charge code. These standards will assure that parkland is dedicated or a fee in lieu of dedication paid that is proportional to the impact of the new residential development and number of residents, so that the community and neighborhood parks that are in the concept plan can be implemented. As far as trails go, land for trails would be dedicated or a fee in lieu paid using a formula proportional to the number of residents, same as parkland. Trail length and width, surface type based on slope, and provisions for fee in lieu of dedication are included here as well. I should mention back on the parks piece that the formula that we're using is based on the Parks Master Plan equivalency of 4 acres per 1,000 residents, using a formula of 2.6 persons per dwelling unit, which we'd multiply the number of dwelling units in the housing development times 4 acres and divide it by 1,000, and that will tell us how much parkland is required. And from that, we either require the dedication or the fee in lieu. And finally, Chapter 1765, which is the Master Plans and Plan Unit Developments chapter. This existing chapter is a discretionary review chapter. State law provides that a local government can provide an alternative discretionary process for housing reviews so long as the alternative does not replace the clear and objective track. By amending the code to implement the concept plan, the city will be providing that clear and objective track. And in this chapter, the master plan code amendments will be making reference to this requirement and providing the appropriate cross-references to the code chapters and overlay districts that apply. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Staff's recommendation is to approve the first reading of this ordinance, 24-1010, adopting the proposed amendments. And this is file LEG 2401. Your options, as always, are to approve the code as proposed, approve the code with any suggested amendments you have, or provide further direction to staff, and we will come back with further information. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? So what kind of feedback did the Planning Commission receive regarding these proposed amendments?
We actually had a lot of public comment, which is summarized in the public comment summary.
Yeah, I read that.
And I think there was some confusion, as we pointed out, that it was a development application. And not a lot of the comments, hardly any of the comments, in fact, were directed at the code amendments themselves. There were some.
Yeah.
For example, the requirement to match zoning. Question came out, does that mean that you match zoning outside the UGB, i.e. county zoning? And so we added the word city into the code to clarify that. And other than that, I don't remember a whole lot of substantive comment.
I saw some of the hearing, and people were thinking it was a development application, so that was kind of confusing because they weren't really sure. Mike, do you have anything?
I've got several questions. Okay. They're not necessarily questions on Pete's staff report, but there's also a public comment, right? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So, do I jump in, or should we?
Please jump in.
Okay. I'm working off of the red line version. So, the 40 feet of spacing, and that's, I'm sure the intent of that is the original Park Place concept plan talked about that green buffer between.
That's correct.
Existing. Okay.
Yeah.
So with 40 feet, the setback requirement, like on the R6, which is a lot of this, is 20 feet. The existing backyards that are abutting that is 20 feet. So there's 40 feet. So where's the extra buffer?
The distance would accommodate the existing setback, but the buffering requirements are for planting or preservation of trees in that area. And that's really the physical buffering, and it would also include, we anticipate that most people will be putting up a privacy fence in their yard as well. But in terms of additional distance between principal dwelling units, that isn't proposed. It's just the 40. It would assure that, there's always going to be 40 feet between dwelling units, principal units, so.
Okay, but in a lot of cases, that's not any extra distance.
It's
and
not
just
any
required,
extra, right.
It would just be more landscaping.
That's true.
Okay. I think that just answered my next question, too.
That's 2 for 1.
On page 14, and I know this is something the Planning Commission talked about, that the, I wish I had my glasses, the 20% reduction that could be requested, 20% reduction in sizes. To be, it's
Number 3.
So, yeah.
17.08.055.
Number 3.
C3.
Yes.
To me, that almost defeats the purpose of matching the existing zoning that's adjacent to it, because if you knock off 20%, you're almost downsized to the next lot, the next smaller, the next most dense zoning type.
Yeah, the process for requesting a 20% reduction would be a minor variance process, which is a type 2 application. Or it could be requested through a master plan adjustment, which is a type 3 application. So I think there was some concern that there's the initial requirement that you can just follow, or you'd have to follow a minor variance process to get something smaller.
So let me ask the $64,000 question. I don't particularly think that is reasonable based on what you just said, Mike, because that's what I thought. Can we just take that out? Is that going to upset the apple cart in any way? I mean, what is the point of having the situation that Mike described, when somebody could come in and say, well, I don't want to do that, I want a 20% reduction? I mean, it's two things that seem to be in conflict with each other.
My recollection, I mean, the reason that one of the concerns that was brought up was existing neighbors looking at the back of 2 or 3 houses behind them. So by matching up the dimensional standards, they'll only have one house behind them.
Right.
And if we allow a 20% reduction, we're back
at that
right where we
particular
were.
Location.
Yeah.
Again, it's conflicting.
Right. It defeats the purpose of matching.
I guess a couple of thoughts on that. One is that the distance between the dwelling units should remain at 40 feet, but there could be more than one dwelling unit, especially in R5 and with middle housing. So it wouldn't be just the one house that the existing house would be looking at. I think the part of the reason for having this exception for townhouses was to allow some amount of flexibility and not take away all of make it so rigid that it couldn't accommodate the townhouse lots. Because what will happen with townhouses are typically on their own lot. So if they can't be reduced, then they're just, a quadplex on, so then you're looking at 4 units on the lot that matches the lot inside the city. Do you know what I'm saying? So if we allow the reduction, then you get the townhouse on its own lot.
And I get it. It's not going to always be just one house behind, but allowing a 20% reduction makes it worse.
So what about if we say that you can do that except for in the area where you're abutting an existing development?
Well, sure. I mean, that's what this section is just where it's in that perimeter transition. So I think there could be a reduction in other parts of, the concept plan if it wasn't in that transition area.
So where does I didn't see it say that, because it's the...
Well, it falls under C.
I see under C, and you say except for townhouse lots. So you're saying townhouse lots could request a 20% reduction.
Within that transition area. So we're just talking about the transition area.
Right, okay. I guess I would just say let's just take that out. So if you're in the transition perimeter, you don't get to reduce the lot. You can reduce it any place else except in the transition perimeter. To me, it just, again, you brought up the point. Do we agree with that?
I agree with that.
I think we have consensus.
Okay, I'll move on. Strong,
Just to clarify,
Okay.
that would affect both, you're saying that would affect both the medium density and the low density, because the same clause is in both.
If you're in the perimeter,
Yep.
you don't get to reduce the lot, no matter what it is.
I know, it's just that we're looking at
Is that-
one
Yep.
page, but
Yeah,
there's
that's my
actually
intention.
Okay.
two districts that affect.
okay, moving on.
So that's in section 055C3, and then it also falls under,
Under 1710, 1710-080C3,
080C3, okay. I think I had it marked there too.
which is on page 23
23.
of the red line.
See if I caught it on 23 as well.
Okay, ready?
And it's C3, the same thing? Okay, yeah.
Page 21, it's 17.10.050B5, and it talks about the affordable housing density bonus. And it talks about a requirement that it stay affordable for 30 years. I'm never a big fan of us writing something that we can't do anything about.
In the future.
And if somebody uses a density bonus and builds to the higher density, we're not going to make them tear it down after the fact 25 years from now. So I don't get the point of having that 30-year in there, because it's not enforceable. There's nothing we could.
Is it a deed?
It's not like we're giving them a tax break that we could take away.
Is it a deed restriction?
And we're not going to make them tear down their density bonus building that they built.
So your question is, how is it enforceable?
My question is, why do we even have it in there? And it's Ms. Richter wants to.
Well, it's a recorded covenant, and the way many of the affordability provisions in the housing statutes are enforceable through the recording of these covenants. In order for someone, so presumably the city, when they're reviewing the occupancy permit, they're going to see that this covenant has been recorded. So at least from the start, the covenant will be there. And then the question is, what would allow an applicant to remove it, or a property owner to remove it, right? Because it will be recorded against the property. It'll run with the title. People will know. What would allow a property owner to remove it? Ordinarily, the city would have to consent to removal. And in other contexts, I've never looked at a covenant for affordability, but in other contexts where there is a covenant recorded against a property that exists for the benefit of the public, a city has to remove it. It has to consent to removing it. That doesn't mean that the city would have the ability to go check every day to make sure that it hasn't been removed. But theoretically, if a person came to redevelop and they wanted to file an application, the city would say, still have that covenant, or the city might check and see if you still have the covenant and wouldn't process a subsequent application if the covenant had been removed. So, I mean, I get your point that it could be removed, and that the city isn't gonna watch it every day, but I think this is the best tool that we have to ensure long-range affordability. If we take it out, then we're not gonna necessarily get any.
Okay, and I hadn't thought about redevelopment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
Well, aren't most covenant restrictions, most covenant violations, are they not initiated by private parties within the same development, or is this of a different ilk?
Well, homeowners, CC&Rs,
Yeah.
those are usually enforced by the homeowners association because they exist for the benefit of the subdivision.
Right.
This would exist for the benefit of the city, right? And so if the covenant was drafted such that the city could enforce it, then the city could enforce it, but, you know, that it couldn't be removed without city consent.
Can adjoining homeowners initiate the action if it was about to be violated?
If they knew about it.
Well, no, because it wouldn't be for the benefit of them. We wouldn't have, they would have to be identified in the deed restriction to be beneficiaries. You know, like an easement has a beneficiary and that beneficiary can enforce. We wouldn't be identifying who the beneficiaries are at the time other than the city.
Carry on.
Moving on, page 31, 17.21, .090A. Says garages and carports are not required. However, the orientation of these structures must adhere to the following guidelines. Whether detached or attached garages shall be side or rear entry. But it doesn't say anything about carports. So you could do the way this is worded, you could do a front entry carport. And is that what we meant? Or did we want to say that carports also have to be side entry?
What's the difference between a detached garage and a detached carport?
And no, I'm talking about a carport as opposed to a garage.
A carport is like a
This says that garages have to be side entry or rear entry, but it doesn't say carports have to be side entry or rear entry.
I think,
They're not the same thing.
Yeah, good question. I think garages and carports, you know, we regulate them the same under the code today in terms of the width and orientation, so we should probably add the word carport.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just got left out.
Yeah, I think so too. Page 32, I think this is just almost more of a wording question. In 17.21095.2, it calls out that window trim on accessory dwellings has to be at least 2 inches wide, but it doesn't say anything about window trim width in the window section of the main dwelling.
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
32.
Red line version.
On the red line version. 17.21.095.2 is talking about accessory structures.
It says as the same size and trim on the principal dwelling unit, provided blah, blah, blah.
Except not less than 2 inches wide.
Right, so it has
It doesn't say that in the section about windows for the main dwelling.
And I think you're referring to 1721-080 windows, which is the main standards.
Yeah.
Let me look at that.
I just think there needs to be something in the window section that says that if trim is provided, it can't be less than 2 inches.
Yeah, I put a question mark there.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm getting the end. Trust me. Page 35.
This is good stuff. Thank you.
Page 35. Permitted uses. Toward the bottom of the list, on permitted uses, veterinary clinics or pet hospitals. And if you go to the next page and look at conditional uses, the last item is veterinary clinics or pet hospitals.
So it can be both.
It needs to be, it's got to be one or the other. It can't be both. If it's permitted, it's not conditional.
Right.
I lost your page. What page did you say?
35.
35.
And
And
the
what
track changes.
is a pet hospital? I mean, shouldn't it just say animal hospital?
Yeah. Okay, we can
I
add
mean, I
it.
could have,
So the question is, are they a permitted use or are they a conditional use?
Good question.
it said, yeah. If you look at A under conditional uses, any use permitted in the neighborhood commercial district that has a building footprint in excess of 10,000 square feet, and then it lists stuff underneath that.
Right.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. That's a good point. So if an applicant proposes a veterinary clinic or pet hospital that's over 10,000 square feet, that's what triggers the conditional use
That's what
permit.
triggers the conditional use. So if the pet
it's-
hospital is
it's the-
9,900 something square feet,
Right.
it isn't a conditional use.
It's the size that's
It's the size.
Is
trigger
that
there.
size threshold applicable to all those conditional uses?
Yes, it's worded now.
Well, I don't think A is applicable to B, C, D, E, F, G. I guess I would say those are in addition.
Yeah, so it's, I think it's the way that it's organized. So the way that it's worded, if it's allowed as a permitted use, and it's gonna go over 10,000 square feet, then it needs a conditional use permit.
Right. If it's any of the uses in O20 and it's over 10,000 square feet, it requires a conditional use permit.
So the remedy here would be, we could just strike it under conditional use permit.
Well, no, but then an emergency and ambulance service, if it's only 5,000 square feet, it is a conditional use.
Correct.
And if a drive-through facility is only 5,000 square feet, it is a conditional use permit.
Correct.
And if it's an outdoor market that's only 5,000 square feet, it is a conditional use permit.
Right.
So hotels, motels, commercial lodging that is less than 5,000 square feet is a conditional use permit.
Sounds like you're looking for consistency.
But veterinary clinic or pet hospital, what? It just needs to be removed.
Yeah.
So are we fixing that, or?
I think the remedy is to delete 17.24.025 sub J.
Sub J, okay. I mean, I think we're running on some shaky ground by defining something as a pet hospital, because anybody can say anything is a pet.
I understand, but it's a commercial zone, so
Right.
we're not subject to the same clear and objective requirements.
No.
So, I mean, unless the commission feels strongly about defining it.
No, I don't, but I mean, there are veterinary clinics that basically specialize in large animals, and they basically say large animal veterinary clinic. And then there are others that are just so a regular veterinary clinic would not be taking care of my horse or my, pet elephant. It would be, that would go to the large animal facility.
So are you suggesting that we change that wording?
Well, I don't know, do we have a definition in the code of what a pet hospital is?
Just checking, we don't have a definition for veterinary hospital or.
I mean, I don't have a problem with veterinary hospital, if you want to just say, because I don't know what I don't know what we mean when we say a pet hospital. So, I mean, if these are a veterinary clinic that also has a hospital with it, or it's an animal hospital of some sort. I know it sounds dumb, but
Yeah.
like
What
I
if
said
we
today,
just say,
people
what if we
call
just
anything
say
a pet.
veterinary clinic or hospital and just strike
or
the,
veterinary hospital.
just strike the
You need to
pet?
have veterinary, because if you don't, you will have people.
Yes, you'll have a people hospital, which I don't think you intend to have that. So veterinary clinic or veterinary, a veterinary hospital. Because like Dove Lewis, it's a veterinary clinic, but it also has a hospital with it that has overnight facilities and stuff like that for, taking care of your pet after, your animal after it has surgery or whatever. More?
Just one more, just a question. So in the NC zone, we've said that there could be a water facility up to half an acre, right?
Water features or
stormwater.
water treatment.
Water treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stormwater treatment.
Half an acre. Do you have any idea how large is that NC zone? I'm just wondering how much of the space we're saying could be a water facility.
I think it's about 14 acres gross and probably 10 to 12 acres net after you dedicate Livesey Road as right-of-way.
Okay, so half an acre is not that substantial a part of it.
Right.
8%.
But
8%, right?
good mental math. I think that's right.
That was good.
Okay, that's That's cool. Okay, that's all I have.
Adam, have anything?
I think I'm just going to distill it down to something that Commissioner Mitchell got to, and I'm glad he did, because I was pleased to see basically the inclusionary zoning aspect in this, and I'm curious, because I'm glad that you brought up the question, because I know that it's done in many places, and I wasn't aware of the enforcement mechanism, and so knowing that is helpful. This wouldn't be the first inclusionary zoning in Oregon City, would it? Or
No, this particular, this particular code clause was adopted when we did the Equitable Housing Code amendments in 2019. It's the same language that we adopted then, but taking it and putting it specifically in the NC zone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's just that mic, because that when James is there, I can hear him, but I'm just wondering
There's like 2 inches.
if the system can hear it here,
Yeah.
so.
I'll leave it at that for right now.
I had some of the same things you had, so obviously we're looking same eye. On page 5, under the definition of deck, I'm not disputing the definition. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, when we say a deck, are we talking, 12 inches from the ground? Are we talking about a deck that's 2 stories? What are we talking about?
Either and both, I think.
All of the above?
I don't know that a deck has a height part of the definition.
Well, I know there's something in the building code that if it's a certain height, then you're talking about it's a structure. It's not just a little deck that you put off your backyard and it's only 12 inches off the ground or something like that.
Yeah, I believe we already say that decks that are under 30 inches do not have to comply with setbacks from residential zones. So the setback requirement is triggered when a deck is over 30 inches.
Over 30 inches.
Yeah.
I think maybe that should be clarified somewhere.
It is in the supplementary zoning chapter.
I would say that there should be just a little reference there to refer back to that.
Yeah.
So that somebody doesn't read that and then doesn't go to the other part.
Okay.
And there was a question I had that I'll find it here. It had to do with, I guess maybe it's been too long, but on page 13 of 62, under B, it's a through lot setback. So it says, through lots having a frontage on 2 streets shall provide the required front yard setback on each street. The required rear yard setback is not necessary. I'm not sure what we mean when we talk about a through lot.
Yeah, there's what that means is 2 public streets on either side of the lot, not including an alley. So an alley would not be considered.
Are we talking about the old corner side lot?
No, we're just talking about weird situations where you may have a longer lot that has public right-of-way on both the front and the rear.
I wish we had a whiteboard, you could draw it, because I tried to figure out how to in my head visually figure out what that was.
It's just, typically we have our lots are double tiered.
Yeah.
So you have a public street, you have a lot that backs up to it, you have a public street. In this case, you have 2 public streets that are parallel, and the same lot has frontage on both public streets. It's a through lot.
So show them what you drew.
You draw a square with a street on either side of it?
Yeah, you drew a rectangle. It's a rectangle. That's not a reasonable lot size, but I get it. Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay. All right.
You can't see that.
No. But it is a rectangle with streets on both sides. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Zoning by picture. Well, pictures are helpful. Sometimes you need to put a picture in there. I will say that I am very glad that you took out the references on page 25 to styles, knowing how I loathe FACO-looking buildings that are not historic. So I'm glad that all of that is gone, because when I saw it in there at the beginning, I said, no, we do not want to put Queen Anne vernacular houses down in Park Place, which have no relationship to anything in our city. Let's just leave the Queen Anne vernaculars to the Kenema district and the McLaughlin district where they belong. But if somebody's dream house is to build, you know, your faux Queen Anne vernacular, great. But I'm glad you deleted all that, and those pictures are also deleted, correct?
Right.
What it said. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It just didn't make any sense that we were actually looking at doing that there. I do like the fact that you're asking for some architectural detailing, but you're not getting so specific that we're talking about the bungalow or, you know, those sorts of things. Although I thought it was interesting that somewhere in here I read that we had a definition for a cupola. We couldn't provide a lookout, so we're gonna, I mean, maybe somebody will put their telescope up there and they're looking at the stars. I don't know. I couldn't quite see that. That was like, what? I don't know what that is. I had some of the same things that Mike had, so I'm not going to repeat that. I think that was all I saw. I think this is a lot of work and trying to understand how they can be clear and objective. And a lot of brain power went into this. Anything?
No, I think my fellow commissioners were very thorough, and I'll leave it at that.
Rocky?
I agree.
Okay. All right.
Can I say two quick things?
Oh, you can say two long things.
No, it'll be quick. Thank you to staff. This is a heck of a piece of work to take objectives out of the Park Place concept plan and turn them into clear and objective standards was not an easy task, and thank you for that. And it's not related to tonight, but I've got to bring it up because we could head ourselves down a wrong road. The definition of kennel means the owner or keeper of 4 or more dogs, whichever, whatever. So I'm a family of 4. The dad owns 3 dogs. The mom owns 3 dogs. The teenage kid owns 3 dogs, and the grade schooler owns 3 dogs. Oh my gosh. And now you got 12 dogs at a house.
And that is a problem.
We can't tie it to owner. It's got to be tied somehow to property, in my opinion. Because you could. Good catch.
Yeah.
You could go down the wrong road.
Yeah. Well, we already have an issue.
We already did.
Yes.
Go down the wrong road.
We already have an issue
that's why I saw it.
And we don't want to repeat that. So let's fix this. So I don't want it to be 4 or more dogs.
Right.
I think when you're starting to get a number of dogs, you know, people can start having puppy mills in their property, and that is a problem because as much as we love puppies and dogs, they make a lot of noise, and the neighbors don't particularly like that.
At all hours.
You want to have a kennel, then you need to be out in the county someplace where you can have property with, you know, no issue.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about city lots, townhouse lots, smaller lots.
Okay, you're proposing.
So can we fix this? This is not reasonable.
I'm looking for the other definition.
Not an owner or a keeper. You just say you can't have this many dogs on a piece of property, period. I don't, you know.
Yeah, we can fix it. This also is not really germane to Park Place, so we could take it out of this altogether and come back with something.
If it's germane to the rest of the city, it needs to get fixed.
Yeah, okay, I found a prior draft where the existing definition is the one that we're talking about with the owner thing in it. The definition that we had looked at as well was kennel means any premises where 5 or more dogs, cats, or other small animals are kept for board, propagation, training, or sale.
Not in a residential district.
What?
But
The problem with binding it to property is you could have a house, you could have 4 houses on one lot.
Yeah, and then you could have
And then
13,
you've got-
15 dogs.
Does dwelling unit do it?
Well, she's saying you'd have 4 houses on one lot.
4 dwelling units on a lot.
And if each one of them had 5 dogs, you're talking kennel.
maybe this isn't a discussion for tonight. I brought it up because I know owner isn't the right thing.
And I guess I wonder, is this, I mean, I understand the problem with commercial breeding of dogs or the commercial sale of dogs, which would be a problem, but do you need to constrain the number of dogs if they're not being, if there is no commercial transaction? I mean, is that a problem if they have 12 dogs on their property? I mean, I think...
Speak to our code compliance folks. It is a problem.
I've seen it.
I don't know where the line is.
In your example, Commissioner Mitchell, any one of those family members would be a kennel owner, so hypothetically, it could be enforced. What is the prohibition? Is it a prohibition or an allowance in the
I think
code?
they should take it out of the park. We need to fix it in the regular code, period.
It's a prohibition. Okay.
I think we understand. We dealt with this through code enforcement. We can come back with some language that addresses it. Essentially, we don't want 12 dogs on a lot.
No, we do not.
And
couldn't you put in a qualifier that says the more limiting of the two conditions would apply?
Yeah, we can come up with something. I mean, it's just you're trying to, I think, middle housing has kind of thrown a little bit of a curveball into how we've traditionally looked at single-family lots. Essentially, you could end up with one lot with 4 or 5 single-family houses on them.
And lots of dogs.
Owned by different people, and each family, theoretically, I would think, could have dogs, right? So that's where we're going to have to kind of work on, is it by dwelling unit, is it by address, something, right, to kind of clarify. But, I could see a situation, especially with middle housing, where, if there are 4 houses on one lot, each house, if it's owned by different folks, can have up to 4 dogs.
Yep, I think that's a problem.
I don't know how you'd
I think you can
split
write
that
something.
hair. What's that?
I think you can write something where the more limiting of the criteria applies, whether it be houses, owners, or lot.
Yeah.
The most limiting of it.
Just specify the intent is that.
Yeah, the most limiting.
We cover everything.
Yeah.
So Merriam-Webster says that a kennel is a shelter for a dog or cat, B, an establishment for breeding or boarding of dogs or cats, or a kennel is a pack of dogs. Where cats and dogs are bred, raised, tamed, or boarded. That's Merriam-Webster's.
Everybody knows the intent.
Yeah,
Just have to
okay, all right.
formulate it.
Do we want to just leave it out of this particular concept plan for now, and then please
Yes.
come back and let's fix this in the regular
Yes,
code?
I think that's
Like I said, check in with our other folks on the other side of the hall there. Okay, so we're going to delete that. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we have the public hearing is open, and we have one person who would like to testify. Are you ready? So I apologize, I haven't seen you lately because I haven't been able to go to the the meetings in the morning because I've had conflicts. But anyway, welcome. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Is this working? Yep.
Yes.
So,
Name and
good evening, Mayor McGriff and City Commissioners. I'm Harlan Barrow with Icon Construction based in West Lynn. I just wanted to highlight a few topics from our recent written and public comments at the Planning Commission, which are in the record for your review, especially our letter of October 21st and its attachments. First, we disagree with the park and trail dedication process as proposed because we believe it represents an unconstitutional taking. We urge the Commission to move quickly to update the park SDCs to include acquisition of park and trail land within the Park Place concept area to provide for proper remuneration. Second, we disagree with the garage orientation standards requiring detached or rear-loaded garages. This is not a Park Place concept plan, goal, or requirement. Except for alleys for rear loading along collectors, These garage standards and alley requirements add considerable cost, which runs counter to housing affordability. And we urge you to consider the realities of these requirements on the look and feel of the community, and especially how it would work on sloped land, which, as you know, represents the majority of the concept plan area. How can this be accomplished realistically with a downward sloping or upward sloping lot? How do you do an alley? How do you do a rear garage? What you end up with are skinny houses with detached garages in those circumstances. So it's also not what the market wants, not the type of product that major home builders want to build. And I doubt anyone really believes all the homes in the concept area, and only the concept area, should have this requirement. At a minimum, we'd recommend including the ability for the planning director to allow for variances for topographic constraints. Third, we also recommend the commission use this opportunity to revise other existing code sections to allow for more two-car garages, something the market clearly wants and provides more accessibility to mobility-challenged homebuyers. Finally, we commend the Planning Commission and staff for all their hard work and agree with elevating Transportation Project D48 to short-term funding to provide faster construction of the Holly Lane connector from Holcomb Boulevard to Redland Road, something we've been actively working with the city to achieve. Thank you for your time.
So don't leave. We might have questions. Questions? Okay, so I guess my question is I hear what you're saying about garage orientation, and I understand, too, that there are definitely going to be and are constraints in the Park Place concept area, which is why it's taken so long for it to be developed, because it does have constraints. It has a lot of reasons to do why many times it was not required, was rejected for annexation, because the slopes are problematic. Does your company have designs that you are thinking about that can accommodate a sloped lot? Or is it the typical house that goes on, people want flat lots when they build. So
well,
how can your designs for a constrained property such as this, or any constrained property, be adapted to fit the land, is what I'm asking the question.
Sure, Mayor. So the types of houses that would work with slopes are the types of houses that have been built in other subdivisions with slopes, or downhill lots. Basically, from a garage perspective, it's including the garage in the house.
In the house, yeah.
And then you have walkouts for downhill lots, and you have garage under 3-story type houses for uphill lots. That's what's been done countless times. And it's this requirement to detach or rear load via an alley, which you can't do on those types of lots. That's the issue. That's the problem. And so that's why having a variance to allow for, if you have topography constraints, that you can build a house with an included garage, like a normal house.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it was normal, but, so that's...
More normal.
More normal, yeah, so that's...
I mean, there are not a lot of detached garage houses.
Right.
I doubt anybody here has one. Well, very many people here have.
I have a detached garage.
If you have, an older house, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think they're in favor in this weather. The only time I've seen them is in the 50s style houses and before. I don't see them in modern houses.
Yeah. And it's a function of, you know, the reality of land pricing, and because to have detached houses, you have to have bigger lots to accommodate detached garages. You have to have bigger lots to accommodate that kind of stuff. And it sort of runs counter to affordability issues, because, I mean, and in one of those documents is a letter from one of our engineers talking about some of the cost increases that detached garages and alleys impose. And, you know, it also has to do and runs counter with the whole middle housing thing, because how do you, if you're doing middle housing and you're taking a lot that might have worked with a house and a detached garage, and now you end up with smaller lots because of middle housing, that's allowable. How are you then gonna still meet the detached garage requirements?
Okay, well, let me add another example. So in just thinking really quickly, I was thinking about a lot of the development that's in Happy Valley. Those are on some amazingly interesting steep slopes, and most of the garages are either next to, or like you say, they are kind of tucked in, and there's like a bonus room or something over the top of the garage that's part of the house. So it's, you know, a square box with the house entry here, the driveway's going like that, the garage is here, the house is kind of around it.
Yes.
And, you know, in this weather, I was thinking, there's a friend lives out there, and I said, I'm not coming to your house if it's icy, sorry. I don't want to see myself going. And those are some steep lots.
Yes.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Anybody else? Because I wanted to ask staff to respond to that suggestion of a variance for topographic constraints. I don't know if we would define what the topographic constraint is. So what are we talking about in terms of a slope? Our requirement is what, we've got 25% or less where we're talking about in our code that we amended many years ago?
Well,
I can't remember right off the top of my head what the steep slope, what the grades are of the slopes in Park Place, because I remember it at one time. I did know it in my head. I don't remember it at the moment.
well, right now, what we're proposing is the ability for a modification when you're in either the natural resource overlay or the geologic hazard overlay. And typically, the geologic hazard coincides with steep slopes in the area.
And yeah, so the modifications process is already part of any subdivision review, potentially. When we're writing the public improvement standard findings, if we're doing any kind of modification to chapter 1612, it can be modified through the same process that we're proposing the alley standard be modified. So there's an option there. I guess the question is, if there are slopes outside of the geologic hazard overlay district, which generally regulates slopes in excess of 25%, or landslide, or 200 feet from a landslide. So it's a pretty big overlay. You know, 50 foot from the edge of a 25-foot slope and 200 foot from the edge of a known landslide.
I wouldn't want them to be building anything within that anyway, but.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are situations where lot grading is going to create buildable lots within the edge of a geologic hazard overlay, and there's going to be significant cut and fill and grading associated with having to construct a new alleyway in order to accommodate a garage orientation or like that. So, you know, there's a modification process.
That's obviously not good enough. Be frank, you can be frank.
There are certainly a lot of slope issues that are less than 25% that would be difficult to develop with. So a geologic hazard overlay area isn't really the problem.
It's the ones that are less than 25%.
Yeah, because, I mean, we can't build in a geologic hazard.
Right, and I wouldn't
anyway.
want you to build in it either,
Yeah, so if you have, you know, a lot that looks like this and the geologic hazard is back here, you still can't get an alley back here.
Yeah.
You
So
still
is there,
can't
is
build
there
a
a way that
garage
we can put in
the
a
back
provision
and get to it.
for less than 25% if there are some I don't think that what he's asking for is unreasonable.
I don't think what he's asking for is unreasonable either. If I think about lot sizes and having built some homes, say a lot size is 60 or 75 by 80 to 100 deep, 60 or 70, how do you accomplish detached garages on that? How do you accomplish rear entry? And when you combine that with a slope and having to cut additional point, it just makes it prohibitive in accomplishing the affordable housing piece.
And, you know, there's also the aesthetic factor that if you're, you know, rear entry or a rear detached garage, you're taking up a lot of backyard, or you end up with no backyard.
But when you combine it with required setbacks, how do you accomplish it?
Exactly.
Well, I will say that the properties along South End Road that were built that are attached, they have rear entry, and obviously it's flat. It works.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It works there.
on a flat land,
Yeah.
you can have a rear entry
Sure.
and still have a backyard.
Right, and they have a backyard.
But when you're
Yeah.
not flat, it's
So,
very
gentlemen,
difficult, if not impossible, to achieve that.
Gentlemen, what do you think about putting something in the code that would accommodate something like that? As much as I like alleys and as much as I like detached garages, I think there's some places they're just not appropriate. And if we can meet the intent of what we want on the flat part with the alleys and the detached garages that are, because there's a little bit of flat area there, somewhere in there.
There is some.
Yeah, there's
Not a
some.
lot, but there is some.
But there should be a way that we could accommodate that. I hate to see all the extensive grading and that would have to take place in order to accommodate this. And I think that I love the concept, and I think when we get around to modifying the South End concept plan, it's a lot flatter. And I think that the cottage type clusters we were talking about there will work really well. I don't know if it totally works as well here. So if there's some way we could put something in here that talks about a modification or a variance procedure for a lot that's less than 25%, I think that would go a long way to sort of achieving the goal of the concept plan. I don't know about affordability because, again, as you know, I disagree with the definition of what is now called affordable. I don't think that's affordable. I'm still looking at the 150% median family income and below. That, to me, is affordable workforce housing.
Well, and let me be clear, Mayor, I'm not talking about affordable housing, I'm talking about housing affordability.
Ability, yes, that's what I wanted to clarify.
It's just a cost factor.
I understand. So if we're all in agreement on taking a look at something like that, I think, again, this is an area where there's going to be exceptions. And to have to go through a major modification for something that I think would degrade the land even more, I think we should try to compromise there.
I'm wary of alleys because of previous experience, and that had to do with who owns them, future maintenance of them. If I combine
That's
that
another factor, too.
with the difficulties of building and having to cut in another, essentially a road, and trying to maximize the use of basically small pieces of land on topographical, difficult building sites.
Constrained, yeah.
It all looks really easy on a flat piece of paper.
Life is easy when you're building it on this.
Well,
but
all the
not
flat
that.
stuff is we're at the point from, my tenure at the city, the flat stuff is pretty much gone.
Yes, unfortunately, that's true.
And we're now looking at the sites that we thought probably would never ever be developed because of the problems. And believe me, I think engineers can make miracles, but they can't solve everything. If the land's going to move, it's going to move. It doesn't matter how much engineering you put into it. It's just going to do whatever it's going to do.
See, and nobody can build ranch houses, 2,200 square feet, one story, detached garage with a breezeway.
Yeah, not
unless you're out on 5 acres somewhere.
That's true.
So, Rocky, are you okay with looking at some sort of modification?
Sure.
I know you are.
Yeah,
I am.
Okay.
yeah, we've
It's like
got the second reading coming up at some future point, so staff can bring back something.
Well, this is just the first reading. I don't know if we can do a
But
first reading with the
I
changes.
guess I want to ask some questions about this we're going to have to come back with some language for you all to consider, but I think that one of the things that it would be helpful to hear from you is whether you want a applicant to go through some process, adjustment, variance, master plan approval, something in order to deviate from this alley and garage orientation requirement, or if you're building on a slope that's more than 5%, 10%, whatever number we settle on, you get to locate your garages anywhere you want and you don't have to have an alley. In other words, it's permitted outright.
That would be simpler.
It would be simpler.
It would be much simpler.
And that's what I believe the applicant, you're not the applicant.
There's no applicant. Delete that. The person that is testifying.
The representative of Icon Construction is advocating for essentially a no requirement for alleys or garages except for when the lot fronts on a collector, an arterial, and that provision, I think everyone agrees should stay.
Yes.
The question is whether or not to deviate from that, you need to go through an adjustment or variance, or whether or not you get it outright. And I think it would be helpful for staff to know.
I think that, I don't know what the percentage is, and I would rely on staff to give us the percentage. So if it's 15 to 25, maybe that's the number. I don't know. If that's whatever you feel is, it's whatever, it's less than 25, but obviously, 10%, I don't think would require one. So whatever that number is, I'm just throwing out 15 to 25%. I have no problem with going through some sort of adjustment as part of the process. It could either be an adjustment, or it could be, if it's this type of slope. Well, let me just back up. There needs to be some sort of justification for it, period. Let me just say that. The simpler way would say, you don't have to do anything. But how are we going to know that that's that? We're going to get the design, we're going to get the topo, we're going to see that. And so does that provide too much extra work for staff to sit and calculate all those slopes on there to see where these things are going? Or do they come in and say, we know these lots are X and we want to deviate from the plan because it's between 15 and 25%?
The latter.
So I think what just to repeat back to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying, and I think there's consensus on this, is that we should write into the code some process for allowing an applicant to request the ability to have an attached front-facing garage, and there needs to be some justification, some trigger, whether that's the topography or...
Topographic is fine, I think.
Something else. So, okay. Did I understand that properly?
And I don't know what the percentage is.
Okay.
I agree with the topographic piece. If you're going to request that the future applicant seeks variance, is that on a property-by-property basis, or can they say, on these dozen properties, this situation exists, and can they address it as a group en bloc?
It should be all of them.
Well, yeah, because you could imagine a case where maybe it's flat for a little bit and then it drops off, right? So that means that entirety of the alley is probably not going to be constructed.
Right.
So it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be a group. You're going to have to look at them as a group.
Okay, that's
Because
fine.
that's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah.
Instead of,
That's what I was looking
I'm going to do 6 variances to
It's got
show
to
you
be
that I can't go here. It doesn't really
as a
make
total
sense.
package.
Well, that's what I was looking for, because time is money, and if you can do it as a group.
It makes
And I
it
would
simpler.
imagine it'd be part of the subdivision application.
Well, that's what I was saying. Part of the subdivision application, we know that lots 1, 5, 10, 12, 15, 16, 18 are this, and we're not going to be able to do that. topographically,
I guess I'm
it's
just
not
saying,
gonna
though,
work.
realize that there could be, if an alley stretches 200 feet and 100 feet of it are in excess of whatever number, that probably means the entire alley is gone, because you can't build half an alley, right? If that makes sense.
It probably would work in blocks.
Right.
Well, it makes sense, it only makes sense in the fact that I have a half an alley next to my house, so.
I mean, just the maintenance,
Yeah,
access.
exactly.
I mean, if we're gonna, if we're gonna do an alley, it should be.
It should
I
be a
agree,
through
block
alley.
by block.
It should be a through alley,
Right,
not
so
an alley that goes halfway and then you have to try to get out.
If a block has a portion that can't provide an alley, then that whole block is gonna be exempt. Because I don't, I don't think you want an alley coming 100 feet and then
No.
hanging a left or a right,
No, we don't.
coming out mid-block.
Right.
On your street, you're trying to not have, protect the capacity of like a collector or whatnot.
There'd be access problems.
Do you remember those past alley discussions where the half the alley went with the property? Is that still the same
I think
situation?
it's still the same, where the alley counts in the lot size,
See,
right?
then you get into future upkeep, and I prefer to stay away from them if possible.
We also have to be careful what we wish for, because if you start moving massive amounts of dirt to accommodate an alley,
Yeah.
and you end up with a giant retaining wall, that's uglier than the garage front would have been.
I agree.
Yeah.
And, there's some of those in my neighborhood. It's like,
What is
why
that?
was that done that way?
Yeah.
And I'm also, I used to be a lot more of a fan of alleys than I am now, because I've kind of been watching. I happened to back up to a subdivision that's a mix. It was all built at the same time. Some of them are alley loaded,
In
some of
Oregon
them are
City
front
or
loaded.
somewhere else?
Pardon?
In Oregon City or
Oh, yeah,
somewhere?
in Oregon City, right off of Thayer Road. And it's a mix of both. There's no more activity on the front porches. There's no more people out there. And there's no fewer cars parked on the road, on the alleys compared to the other. And we can't change the way people live. They're still parking their car in front of their house and going in the front door, even if there's an alley behind where they could. So in theory, I used to like alleys a lot more than I do now, because people don't change the way they live.
Well, they work better in my neighborhood than they do pretty much anywhere else in
Yeah,
town.
probably so.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I think a flat gridded, just the traditional street grid works a lot better than what we typically see in newer subdivisions, which, we're just not dropping 200 by 400
Now,
squares
we're
down.
talking 60 by 100 lots, period.
Yeah.
So, was that as clear as mud? Okay. Clear?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll
I
bring-
see
we'll
no
bring
one
this-
else here to testify. Is anybody else here to testify on this legislative item? Okay, so I will close the public hearing.
So if we could just continue this to the December 18th commission
Perfect,
meeting,
okay.
we'll bring back the changes and try and clean it up. So
Okay. Do we have a motion for continuance?
So moved.
Second. Okay, second by O'Donnell, moved by Smith. Roll call.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So you see, we caught stuff that the planning commission didn't catch, but that's okay. Why, there's two sets of,
It's called life experience.
it's called 5 sets of eyes versus 7 sets of eyes. All right, so our next item is first reading of ordinance number 241016, codifying the ban on psilocybin businesses. And this is basically, we had a recent general election where this was on the ballot, and in Oregon City, it was overwhelmingly approved that we would not have psilocybin businesses in our town, period. We don't, this is not the 2-year period where we come back and look at it later. This is it. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Discussion?
Okay.
Hey, how about a motion?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 24-1016.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I don't believe there's any further discussion. The voters have spoken. Let's do it.
Ordinance number 24-1016, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City codifying the ban on psilocybin businesses.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. we will make it so on the 18th and read it for the second time. What was the spread on that? Do we know?
You remember, Jacob?
I'll find it in just a second.
I think it was like 10,000 to ban, 8,000.
After I left Dodge, I just didn't look at any more. I never looked at any election results. It's like I just didn't look at anything. I knew it had passed, but like 50.
The vote was 10,370 in favor of the ban, 8,631 against.
Okay, well, not close. Okay, all right. Communications.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Anything you want to say about the work session? That would be a communication.
On Tuesday, so next Tuesday, we'll have the DMO,
Whatever.
DMO, whatever it's going to be called.
The DMMO.
I'm pushing for DMMO, so it's clear what it's supposed to do.
I'm agnostic on it, so whatever you all decide, I'm good with. So we'll be bringing that on Tuesday.
Okay, anything?
No.
Okay, all right, being no further business of this commission, I move and declare the meeting be adjourned.